Hello and welcome to Live Action Fitness. Are you a neurodivergent teen or adult looking to get active in your community? I'm joined here today by Catherine Robertson of DC Peers. Thank you for joining me today.
No problem.
So, tell us about DC Peers and why you created it.
It is a community organization that I started 8 years ago because I wanted to bring a variety of kids together and get them to talk about how differently they experienced things in high school. We called it we we called it a club, and it was all free, and everybody really benefited from it and wanted to keep coming back, and so we kept developing more ideas for groups, and folks started just to come in who were younger and people who are older, and I realized, okay, we're becoming a community organization that is trying to just provide a variety of social things for neurodivergent teens and adults because there really isn't much of that right now. Most of the social experiences folks get, unless they have mastered the art of social interaction in among neurotypicals in high school or college, is most of the things supports are clinical, or you go into a clinic, or you go into, I don't know, a special program to find ways to find folks to connect with. And I wanted it to be the opposite. So that's what we're working towards.
I see. That's a really good point. Most of the services, two main things. There's a lot of services are geared towards younger kids,
Right.
little kids, right? They've got all sorts of pediatric services. And then a lot of those services are one form of therapy or another.
Right.
There's speech therapy or occupational therapy and so on.
The skills
So,
training. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So you've got an actual organic service that has developed here for teens and adults who are neurodivergent so
Right.
that they can get involved. They have a place where they can hang out, talk to each other, have these activities, but it's not like they're going to a therapy session, right?
Right. And we try really hard to provide activities that folks will like. We don't provide activities that we think they should like.
Hmm.
We also we started right away with an autistic advisory group, which we called the think tank. And that was both my high school students and my adult colleagues who are autistic who had a feel for what is it folks need when they're in high school and they're neurodivergent and they're misreading cues and being misinterpreted in high school. What do they need? I do feel like I've been co-creating this with my autistic advisors and now staff. All of my staff is neurodivergent, which is great for high school kids because they come in and they see these cool adults who are interested in the same things they're interested in, particular franchises, games and stuff. They know about them. I don't. And also that they're young and also that they're cool. They're fun to be with. They're not corrective. We don't correct everybody. But we do focus on group harmony, and that's not always easy because, um, getting kids to all agree to do the same thing is not always easy because kids.
Yeah.
And we kinda work on that, like, figuring out accepting other people's interests and other people's quirks. That's one of the things that we work on together.
Hmm.
Um,
That sounds great because I know a lot of the kids I work with, especially you can hear it from talking to the parents, the kids often struggle to make friends because the way that they're playing, it's a lot of my way or the highway. Like this is the right way to play this game, or and then if they have a hard time being flexible, and then they get frustrated and oh, you don't want to do it. Like I told you, like this is the way we're going to be playing this game, and then when there's a conflict there, they don't just naturally go with the flow. They can get frustrated and stuck.
right, and that is something that I've learned a lot from my, neurodivergent colleagues, adults and teens I was hearing about. They all realize that this is a challenge and that and what I have come to understand is it is a neurological challenge because there's so many things that are mystifying in the neurotypical world. that when it comes to playing a game or doing something that they enjoy doing, they really want to have control of that. It's a little bit difficult to reconcile social compromise and actually controlling the thing you love to control. So that's
Yeah.
tricky. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is what
exactly.
your games are so good for.
Yeah, they are. I think that's the structure there. So we're all playing together. We're here to have fun and it's voluntary, right? You
Yeah.
you can't force somebody to play the game with you. It's not really play if you're doing that,
Right.
right? So you're able to collaborate all together
Right.
and you have to agree on some of the rules, even with typical team sports, which we're not really into, but it's just an obvious example. You don't show up to the football field dribbling a basketball. It's like
Right. Right.
we're playing a different game. Like, all right, we could have fun. We could switch it up. This time you're the quarterback. This time I'm the quarterback, or whatever. So we can be flexible, but we are doing something together. That's where the magic happens.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I have to say though, and I've said this before, a lot of the things that our kids struggle with in situations outside the outside world, they don't struggle as much with in our groups. The kids are pretty relaxed in our groups. And asked one of the adults, why is it that I don't really see these things you're talking about, these communication difficulties and these like frustrations? And they said it's because we feel safe here. And I think that's a huge deal. I think there aren't enough places where neurodivergent folks can be themselves and not feel continually under scrutiny, fear of being misunderstood or judged for little tiny nuances, little tiny things like not making eye contact at the right time. It can completely tank your relationships in the neurotypical world. But in our groups, there's a lot of wiggle room, there's a lot of understanding, there's a lot of shared issues. So people relax and they tend to be more naturally collaborative,
Yeah,
which is
the
a good thing.
relaxation is so important.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And most of the time, you can't relax because really, when you're at school or maybe you're at work or God forbid, it's like your dating life, there's a lot of pressure. It's
I
tough.
know. I know.
I'm neurodivergent myself, and it's very difficult to follow all the rules. I sometimes think of it like being tone deaf, but you got to play a musical instrument,
Yeah.
right? You're like, okay, I'm not a natural, but I'm trying, right?
Right.
And when there's more pressure, it's like you're not helping, just adding
Oh,
more
I know.
social
I
pressure.
I had a little personal training session yesterday for the first time in a very long time. And the guy was giving me about 5 things to remember. I was supposed to hold my back in a certain way and twist my knee in a certain way and do my breath at a certain moment. And coordinating all those things was so difficult. I wanted to run away. And I was, as you're saying that, I'm reminding what I keep hearing is that when you're expected to mask and you're supposed to do all these little tiny things that neurotypicals do so that they recognize what you're doing, you have to remember 5 things at once. How are you having fun? How is that socially satisfying?
It's stressful. It's
Yeah,
stressful.
yeah.
That's what happens, exactly, and then you might flip your lid because you can only take so much stress and pressure for so
Right.
long in that situation, so that's why, yeah, sometimes it's better to keep it a little shorter or take a
Yes.
little break, and of course, I'm a trainer as well, so you gotta be
Oh,
very
yeah, then you have
careful,
to
you gotta
keep it
be
out. Yeah.
mindful. Yeah, I can't give someone s in particular, when you're teaching new things, new
Right, right.
movements, new
Right.
positions, new equipment, you can't give them so many things to remember and do all at once in the beginning, right? You
Right.
have to, like, drip one new skill at a time, and it's funny, people forget about the safety and danger, but it's because a it's not the classic true form of danger like a saber-toothed tiger is
Right.
here to maul your face off. But
Uh-huh.
really, you could feel that way
Right.
socially, right? You
Right.
feel it's the same type of emotional state because you're not relaxed, you're full of tension, and then everything becomes difficult.
Yep.
Right? And then the
Yep.
more you're able to relax, because maybe you have someone who's leading a session at DC Peers who helps everybody chill out. Like, we're just here to have fun.
Mhm.
And then you're more relaxed and everything just flows so much better from there.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So, what kind of services do you run and offer over at your location?
We basically have 3 types of groups for 3 different age groups. Right now, we don't have every type and every age group, but we will in the new space. We have social meetups, and right now we have them for middle schoolers on Saturdays and high schoolers on Sundays, and those are just they come and they have choices among games, crafts, and video games, or just hang out on your own, and maybe that one of the staff can play your own game with you. Um, and those are really popular. The kids really look forward to them, and it's a really great dynamic that we've developed. And actually, I give all the credit to our staff, who have just developed this with their own enthusiasms, and it's grown organically, like you say. We also have support groups, and we right now we have 3 support groups for adults. They're all very small. Don't do any marketing, but right now, until we get in the new space, that's okay. One of them is basically a men's neurodiversity group, and the other one is basically a women's neurodiversity group. They're both open to non-binary folks of any description, but like, oriented in that way. And then we have a third, which is especially for late diagnosed adults. And this is being run by someone who themselves is late diagnosed and is volunteering to this group.
Mhm.
Um, we also have an adult role playing game group. We also have an adult Sunday City Adventures group. That one's free.
What's that
And
mean?
they just go out in the city and do stuff.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
So, like Sunday, went to the zoo, and in 2 weeks, they're going to go to the Air and Space Museum. It's just a chance to get out and get around town. And then the third category are workshops, and we have a couple different ones. One staple is our neurodiversity workshop, which is what I started with, which is where I bring in neurotypical and neurodivergent kids. I don't, it's not a quota or anything, but
Mhm.
I tend to draw a good mix. And then we talk about the neurology of social interaction. We talk about what kinds of things happen in high school, what kind of social pressures there are, what kind of social situations there are, and how they feel about them and how they experience them. And people are able to articulate their experience, which is really good for everybody. It's good for self advocacy and it's good for empathy on all sides. And then we also have social strategies workshops, that's our alternative to social skills. And because that's tricky, that's been on hiatus for a bit. We had a roundtable last spring to explore what's actually helpful and what's not helpful. Because a lot of autistic colleagues of mine don't like the idea of a social skills training. And yet there are lots of folks that come to me and say, I really could use some coaching on this.
Right.
So we're trying to find a way through that, trying to thread that needle, and pretty confident we know how to do it starting in January. And then what other workshops do we have? Well, things pop up. Like we have, as I said, we have these awesome staff members who have their own ideas for groups. So there's one person that wants to do a cooking group, and there's one person who wants to lead a knitting group. That's thing I'm hoping a lot of stuff like that will bubble up in the new space. We'll try something. People are drawn to it, they'll come, and maybe that'll start a regular group. If not, because like you say, scheduling is tough, and getting enough people in the space that want to do the same thing together at the same time is a challenge. So we've
Yeah.
embraced that. That's just a constant part of our challenge.
Yeah, of
Uh,
course. But now if you have like a common activity that brings people together, maybe capture their interest, like a cooking club or something like that.
yeah,
So then you can build it organically and maybe they end up practicing in real life all these social skills without it
right.
being such a formal
That's the
social
thing.
skills class. Exactly.
Exactly. Right.
Right? We're just here to collaborate. We're doing something together, whether you think of it like a game or not. I think of games in like two major ways. You've got the competitive games, like a sport, and then cooperative games, which some people don't realize they're playing games. It's everything from hopscotch to the social game is just you're having conversations. You're navigating your way around, maybe
Mhm.
going on that field trip, doing the PC adventures, getting out and about. And that's a great way to hook people in and see what they're really interested in, cooking class, or maybe it's something based around the video games that they like to play or books that they like to read or who knows what.
Yeah, yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah.
And you mentioned there are a couple things I want to touch on, but of course you mentioned RPGs.
Mhm.
And we first connected a couple of years ago. I came out to this space that you were using at the time and ran, I believe we did 2 games. We it
Yeah,
was
we
a
did, yeah.
two-parter,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We didn't
yeah.
finish the first time, which is very common. That's how that goes. You try to like, "Oh, we're gonna do it all in one day," and then it's like, dot, "To be continued." So we
Right,
had to do a
right.
little follow-up, but really was a lot of fun getting some of your kids at the time in that program and getting them
Yeah,
engaged in a new role-playing game.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
that's a way where it blends the 2 elements together because with the role-playing game, it's like me, I'd be the game master as your generic term. So the game that I created, Live Action Fitness, that role is you're called the tour guide, right? So
Mhm,
I'm just here
mhm,
to guide you around. I'm here to help. I'm going to answer all your questions, make sure everything's running smoothly. All right. So I'm just facilitating the game as the referee and the narrator. But the other guys are the actual players in the game. And
mhm.
so they get to play together and they're all on the same team, right? So
Right,
they're
right.
cooperating with each other. And then as the facilitator of the group, as the tour guide, I'm giving them some situations or scenarios where they're facing some adversity,
Mhm,
some sort of challenge, and they have to overcome that and work together as a team, whether it's a social challenge or, of course, in the game, you have combat encounters as well. So it's an
mhm.
absolute blast. So you have more, yeah, now you've got someone who also runs more of these RPG sessions?
Yeah, but not like you do. We have 2 of our adult staff members love to do it in their own lives, so they both have run actually, 3 of them like to do it. Only 2 of them have had the time. But these are for adults, and they're not physical. They're not doing anything physical with it. But, yeah, they've done D&D. Well, they did advanced D&D with teenagers, and we've done adult role-playing games. This is the first time we've done that, so
Yeah,
but they're very popular. There's an endless demand for that.
there sure is. Yeah, the
Yeah,
demand is huge. I think
yeah,
for people who aren't plugged into that world, like they have no idea. It's gotten bigger and bigger. We're
yeah.
talking about live events where now you can actually watch people play D&D and RPGs literally in Madison Square Gardens
Oh,
and
really?
yeah,
Huh,
and other locations. You can go to play D&D in a castle in Scotland.
really?
Yeah, there are major, like, getaway adventures that you can go, play
Oh,
in. It's huge. Time Magazine did a huge spread on D&D for the 50th year anniversary, and so the demand is absolutely huge,
I've got
and
to
some people think it's like, like my 10-year-old wold would like that because, "Oh, my kid plays Minecraft, so they'd probably like it," and then sometimes they think, like, there are a few common false beliefs, like myths, and one of them is that, "Oh, my kid's a little too old for that." Like, it's like some sort of game
Oh,
for children. It's quite the opposite. The game gets
absolutely.
richer, it gets better and more engaging as you grow up, right? So
Yeah.
it's perfect. You've got teens and adults, and that's really where it's at because you're able to do so much more with your social interaction and your planning. You're using your brain to get things done, what we call executive functioning.
Mm.
That's where it's at. When a lot of kids struggle with that, they have a hard time with mental focus. Do you see that in the program?
Oh, yeah. I think that's
Struggling with
one reason
mental focus?
well, we don't push that a lot, except if you're talking about the games. I know that, like, the younger kids had a lot of trouble with it
Mhm.
in the beginning D&D, but we don't and yes, if we're trying to teach a lesson, they have trouble following me from the beginning of the sentence to the end. That's true, yeah, absolutely, and I know that's widespread, like, I have that problem. I have
Yeah, me
ADHD.
too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Exactly. So
But it's
that's great.
but the thing that sharpens it is practice, and the thing that helps you practice it is doing something you enjoy and that you're engaged in, so your dopamine goes up, and then that's why the gaming thing is so great.
Exactly, exactly. I think that's really one of the most important messages, especially for parents or adults, like anyone out there in the neurodivergent community. You can actually have a lot of fun and just play games together, and you're leveling up your social skills, your executive functioning skills. And then with my role playing game, I just brought in the fitness element. So now you're getting like physically stronger and also more coordinated. And actually, I was at a special event a while back with a friend of the program, Dr. Kelly Pham from Reach Pediatric Therapy. And one of the doctors who was working at her practice, a developmental psychologist, did a presentation on executive functioning. And so I showed up for that. And then the punchline of the whole thing was about what the research says on improving your executive functioning. It turns out movement was the number one thing.
Uh,
And I was like, oh, really? Like, yeah, exactly. Like, you don't say,
Excuse
you know?
me, I have something
Yeah.
to say.
So it was
Yeah,
perfect. Because I
that's
think
great.
as your body is moving and you have to plan the movements as you're doing them. And it's happening in your mind when you're physically expressing yourself. And it really just creates new neural connections,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
That's what we're doing. We're neurodivergent, and I'm neurodivergent myself. So
mhm.
I totally get it. And the movement piece is what helped me really open up. And then I was a D&D player as well. So just put the two of these things together, and then you're engaged in having fun and also training your brain. That's the
Do you
cool
do
part.
you do you do this with adults?
We're getting there. Exactly. We've got a few projects going on right now, but I've had a few people ask me about that. What I'm starting with, I've got two campaigns. We've got the preteens and the teens, and those are just about full. I'm going to be able to open up a couple new spots if and when I move to a new place that has yet to be announced. And so after that, we're opening up the game to adults, including professionals who will eventually be able to run their own sessions. So that way they get involved in the game and just see the basic structure and all the guidelines on making sure everything runs smoothly. Because it is very much an art form, just like teaching. It's not just like giving a bunch of information, right? Like in a social skills class. Okay. It's more of an experience that
Yeah, it's
you're
like theater.
providing. Sorry?
It's like theater.
Exactly, yeah, it's like theater, right?
Yeah,
Like theater and improv. It's Did you
yeah,
ever see Whose Line Is It Anyway? You remember that TV
of
show?
course.
Right?
Oh,
So,
yeah.
there's a live theater component, and just like in real life, you gotta improvise, you gotta go with the flow. It's not all scripted, but there's this live theater component, and that's where the flexibility comes in. So we're going to be opening it up to adults and launching new campaigns very soon.
Cool.
Going to
Will
be
you
a
do
lot of
it
fun.
for
We're going
us
to have to
next week?
collaborate.
Oh, yeah, we have lots of adults that would do it, no doubt.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
We'll be doing some new stuff, and especially I'm talking about the new location, and you're also moving soon to a new location, right?
yeah, we're doing the work on the space now. I think we might be in there so that we can paint and build our furniture in December, and hopefully we'll be running our groups in January. So,
There you go. That's perfect. So we'll
yeah,
be able to provide awesome gaming sessions for all the members of
yeah,
your community,
yeah,
and hopefully build a team, because it can only be in one place at one time. And thing
mhm,
is, it does takes a lot of mental energy. I'm sure you've seen that with the people who are running the RPGs in your program right now.
yeah,
It takes a lot of planning and mental energy to run these sessions because there's magic there, right? And
mhm,
so it takes focus. And so having the ability to collaborate and expand that community where there are more and more people who are able to run the games because that's a different role. It's a special role to have someone who can run the role playing game session and then
Mhm.
provide that session to the players.
Right,
Those are two different
right.
things.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I look forward
Now,
to.
so neurodivergent here with your community, that can mean many different things. So, it doesn't need to be exact. I'm just curious because my program is full of neurodivergent kids as well.
Mhm.
And you're working with a little bit of an older population than me right now, but
Mhm.
still neurodivergent. How much of that is the autism spectrum or ADHD? What kind of neurodivergence are we talking about?
Mostly autistic, not always identifying themselves as such, not always having gotten a diagnosis, but mostly folks who struggle with nonverbal communication and reading cues and tone and context for social situations. So a lot of them are really high achieving teens and adults who are isolated socially. So they've done really well in school or they have great jobs, but they haven't cracked the code for themselves and they find themselves looking for some community. We It's been like a niche. We've developed a niche towards the kind of, well, most of our groups are conversation or based, which means that there's most of our folks are able to connect through those things, conversation or games. So that's our only kind of like way of defining their functioning level, which is not a term that people like to use. So one thing that we're trying to work on is in the new space, when we have more space and more options, is activities that are also for folks that really connect through other means, like just movement or sharing a movie, or that don't require a lot of
Right.
language skill. In other words, I want to open up the folks. I want to open the boundaries a little bit of the folks that we can provide something fun for.
Right. So maybe I'm not super into talking and having conversation. Maybe that's like not my strength or my natural inclination, but maybe I'm hooked in because we're going to do that cooking class or we're going to, you know, have a special like video game night where we play Super Smash Brothers or something like that. So we have something that allows us to connect together one
Right,
way
or
or
a
another.
music thing, or a music thing where people can do, like, silent dance party or something.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. But
Okay.
also, the cool thing about having a drop-in space will be that if people don't feel like talking, but they do feel like being around other people in a place where they can be themselves, they can just come in and parallel play with each other, which is something one of my staff said. We should have a gathering where people just bring something they're doing and working on themselves and just they do it together, like you might do in
Hmm.
a library or a coffee shop.
Right.
So that's
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that
also
that makes perfect sense, exactly. You might have some kids who they wanna go read a book or they wanna be working on they're, like, writing their own comic book or something like that, whatever, but they have a place they could go to hang out. Go hang out, see what everyone's up to, connect a little bit, maybe get a drink, maybe get a snack, see you
yeah, yeah,
later. So now they have a space where they can actually do that, and they feel
right,
comfortable.
right.
So it's perfect.
Yeah,
So, I'm excited. We're gonna have to do some, future collaborations, some special events
absolutely,
for the community. So,
definitely.
now where can people find you if they wanna either actually show up and join the community or maybe even do you accept volunteers who run
Yeah,
services?
yes, and we have to do a better job identifying where you can connect with us on that. On our website, we have to revise our website. But our website is www.dcpeers.org, and there are forms you can fill out to say, "I'm interested in doing connecting, volunteering, whatever." And there's also a registration page if you wanna sign up for one of our groups. A lot of them are full, but not all of them. And, uh you can always email us to set up a time to talk, just a free information call. It's not really obvious how to do that through website, so it's office@dcpeers.org. You can email us to set up a time,
Great.
and,
Yeah, we can put a link for everybody right? So
Great.
they have a way to
Great.
get in touch, get connected, and especially if you're just maybe you're just curious, you don't have to be ready to jump in right now, but at
No,
least they could get on your mailing list and get up to
exactly.
dates as the new programs come out in your new location. And that's going to be in Tenleytown, right?
Yep.
Okay, because we have a lot of local families, so they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, that's right there."
Right on Tenley. It's right on
Mhm.
Wisconsin Avenue across the street from Steak and Egg. And yeah, our mailing list. Oh, yeah, I was going to say, we really, given the nature of people in my own family, we really believe in people only coming, trying things out. If you want to try a group and you go, you can always say, I only have to do it for 5 minutes because a lot of folks are nervous about a new group, a new context. They don't know what it's going to look like or who's going to be there, or how it's going to feel. So it's always okay in our groups to just sample it. You don't have to sign
Yeah.
up for sessions without knowing what you're getting into.
Well, I'm glad you said that. That's such a good point, and I
Yeah.
think that that was always an issue for me as a kid, as a
Mhm.
neurodivergent kid. I didn't enjoy, like, signing up for 6 months of
Right.
whatever kind of sport it was, like little league this or rec basketball or whatever. Is a huge commitment,
Yeah.
and you're committing to games and practices and things like you don't even know when it is, and so that commitment does stop people from
Yeah.
reaching out way
Yeah.
too often. So it's
Yeah.
good to just get connected and try it, just like a little free sample, get a little
Right.
taste, and then see, okay, not so bad, and see what you're interested. If you want to sign up, you're ready to go.
Exactly.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Catherine. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for doing this. I really it's cool that you're doing these podcasts, and I'm really excited to bring you in and or collaborate with you, and I'm really thrilled that your business is thriving.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we'll definitely keep in touch, and
Mhm.
we're both going to be hosting events in the community. So we'll definitely have to collaborate and do more together.
Definitely.
All right. Thank you
All right,
very
take
much.
care.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.